Amanda stood in front of the large mirror in her luxury apartment on Victoria Island. She sighed as she adjusted the straps of her emerald green dress. The face staring back at her was the same one plastered on billboards, magazines, and television screens across Lagos. Amanda was the star everyone admired, but tonight she felt like a stranger in her own skin. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Another message from her assistant, Joyce, reminding her about the gala she had to attend. Amanda rolled her eyes and typed back, "On my way." She wasn't in the mood for crowds, cameras, or fake smiles, but showing up was part of the job. Amanda's fame wasn't just about acting. She was a brand, a symbol of success and beauty. But being Amanda came with a price. Over the years, her relationships had crumbled under the weight of the spotlight. There was Toby, a popular musician who ended their relationship with a song everyone knew was about her. Then there was Ken, her co-star in a blockbuster film, whose public outburst during their breakup had fueled weeks of tabloid gossip. Amanda couldn't even visit a grocery store without rumors swirling about her personal life. She grabbed her clutch and stepped into her waiting car. As the driver navigated through the bright lights and bustling streets of Lagos, Amanda stared out the window, her mind racing. She thought about the love she'd lost and the friendships that had faded as she climbed higher in her career. People only saw the glamour, but they didn't see the loneliness that came with it. When she arrived at the gala, cameras flashed and reporters shouted her name. Amanda plastered on her signature smile, the one she had perfected over the years. Inside, she mingled with other stars, answering the same questions about her upcoming projects and fashion choices. It was all part of the routine, but deep down, she felt disconnected. As the night dragged on, Amanda found herself standing alone on the balcony, looking out over the city. The noise from the party seemed distant, almost muted. She sighed again, wondering if she would ever find someone who saw her as more than just Amanda, the actress. Little did she know, her journey was about to take a turn in the most unexpected way. Amanda woke up to the soft hum of the city outside her window. She rubbed her temples, feeling the lingering exhaustion from the gala the night before. Joyce's texts flashed across her screen. As she picked up her phone, a sharp reminder of her schedule. Among the messages was one she couldn't ignore, a reminder of her doctor's appointment that morning. Amanda dressed in understated clothing, jeans, a loose button-down shirt, sunglasses, and her favorite patterned headscarf. She avoided her usual luxury car and instead called for a cab, eager to avoid unnecessary attention. The hospital was located in a quieter part of Lekki. Her appointment went smoothly, and the doctor assured her that the stress she felt was manageable as long as she found ways to slow down. Amanda laughed softly at the irony. Slowing down felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Stepping out of the hospital, she pulled her headscarf tighter and adjusted her sunglasses. She paused on the sidewalk, scanning the street for an available cab. Just as she raised her hand to hail one, her eyes caught sight of a small, charming bookstore across the street. The wooden sign above the entrance read, "Escape Within." Amanda hesitated for a moment before crossing the street, curiosity guiding her steps. The bookstore smelled of aged paper and wood, a comforting scent that immediately put her at ease. The shelves were packed with books of all sizes, and the quiet hum of an air conditioner blended with faint music playing from a small speaker. Behind the counter, a tall man with a calm expression was arranging a stack of books. He looked up as the bell above the door chimed. "Good morning," he said warmly.
Let me know if you need anything.
Amanda offered a polite nod and wandered deeper into the store. Her fingers traced the spines of books as she browsed. She picked up a novel, flipping through its pages, but the titles around her piqued her curiosity even more. Lost in the tranquility of the space, she didn't notice when the man approached her with a cup of tea.
You look like someone who enjoys books that offer an escape.
He said, placing the cup on a small table nearby. Amanda glanced at him, surprised by his observation.
I suppose I do. It's been a while since I've had time to read.
Any particular genre? He asked, tilting his head slightly.
Something thrilling,
She said with a small smile.
something that keeps you guessing.
Right this way.
He said, leading her to a section labeled Thrillers and Mysteries. They spoke briefly about books, and Amanda found herself at ease, despite the stranger's curious but kind demeanor. She didn't offer much about herself, careful to keep the conversation light. The peaceful moment was interrupted by another customer who entered the store. A woman glanced in Amanda's direction, her gaze lingering. Amanda's heart skipped as she instinctively adjusted her sunglasses, hoping not to be recognized. She murmured an excuse and quickly made her way to the door, her steps hurried but composed. Raphael watched her leave, something about her presence lingering in the quiet of the shop. As he turned back to the counter, his eyes fell on a small notebook lying near the cash register. He picked it up, noticing the initials AO faintly embossed on the cover. By the time he looked up again, Amanda was gone. He stepped outside and scanned the street, but there was no sign of her. Puzzled, he turned the notebook over in his hands before walking back inside and placing it carefully on the counter. For a moment, he stood there, wondering who she really was and if she would ever come back. Amanda sat on the balcony of her apartment, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. The chaos of her life had momentarily quieted, but her thoughts were anything but calm. Her mind kept drifting back to the small bookstore and its unassuming owner, Raphael. There was something about him that felt different. He hadn't treated her like Amanda, the actress. He'd treated her like just another person, and she liked that more than she cared to admit. After much deliberation, Amanda made up her mind. She needed to go back, if only to retrieve her notebook. That's all it was, she told herself. A simple errand. Before leaving, she texted Joycey, heading out for a quick errand. Pick me up in an hour near Lekki. With that, Amanda hailed a cab and directed it toward the bookstore. Her heart fluttered slightly as the familiar wooden sign came into view. She stepped inside, and the welcoming scent of aged paper greeted her once again. Raphael looked up from behind the counter, his face lighting up with recognition.
You're back, he said warmly. I was starting to think you'd forgotten about your notebook.
Amanda smiled softly and walked up to the counter.
I don't forget things that matter.
Raphael handed her the notebook, his fingers brushing against hers briefly.
I kept it safe for you.
Thank you.
She said, glancing around.
I hope I'm not disturbing you.
Not at all.
He said, pulling out a chair by a small reading table.
Stay a while, unless you're in a hurry.
Amanda hesitated for a moment, then sat down.
I guess I have a few minutes.
Their conversation picked up where it had left off days ago. They talked about books. Amanda confessed her love for thrillers and romance, and Raphael shared how he'd started the bookstore to preserve stories inspired. He spoke about his dream of introducing more young people to the magic of reading, his passion clear in every word. Amanda found herself drawn to his sincerity. There was no pretense, no hidden agenda. He wasn't trying to impress her or pry into her life. It was refreshing. The bell above the door jingled. Amanda turned to see Joycey walking in, her expression a mix of relief and exasperation.
There you are.
Joycey exclaimed.
You know you've got a meeting in 20 minutes, right?
Amanda sighed, standing reluctantly.
Duty calls.
She said to Raphael with a small smile. Joycey glanced between them, her eyes twinkling with mischief.
So this is the famous bookstore owner you've been quiet about.
She teased, earning a puzzled look from Raphael and a glare from Amanda. Amanda quickly ushered Joycey toward the door, but as they left, she clutched her notebook tightly. She couldn't ignore the warmth she felt after spending time with Raphael. What intrigued her most was how completely unaware he was of her stardom. He spoke to her like a person, not a celebrity, and she valued that more than she could put into words. For the first time in a long while, Amanda felt a genuine spark of curiosity. Curiosity about Raphael, his world, and a sense of peace she found in his presence. The bookstore was unusually quiet that afternoon, the warm sunlight streaming through the large windows casting long shadows over the shelves. Amanda sat at the small reading table, flipping through a novel Raphael had recommended. Her laughter echoed softly as she reached a particularly witty line. Raphael, organizing a shelf nearby, turned to look at her.
You find that funny?
He asked, raising an eyebrow.
It's brilliant.
Amanda replied, a smile tugging at her lips.
I didn't think I'd enjoy satire, but you might have converted me.
Well, I'm glad to be of service.
Raphael said, sitting down across from her. He rested his elbows on the table, his expression curious.
You've been coming here a lot. What is it about this place?
Amanda hesitated, tracing her finger along the book's spine.
It's peaceful. A little corner of the world that's not loud.
Raphael nodded, not pressing further. He liked the mystery of her, even if it occasionally made him curious. Their light conversation continued, and for a moment it felt like they were in their own world. Unbeknownst to them, Stella, the celebrity blogger, stood across the street with a photographer, her sharp eyes trained on the bookstore. She had followed Amanda's movements for weeks and was thrilled to catch her in such an unguarded moment. With a nod, she motioned for the photographer to take the shot. The click of the camera was inaudible inside, but it wouldn't be long before its impact was felt. That evening, Raphael sat at the bookstore's counter, flipping through a newspaper when his phone buzzed. It was Gabriel.
Have you seen this?
Gabriel's voice sounded half amused, half concerned.
You're on every gossip page. Some blogger named Stella says you're dating a celebrity.
What?
Raphael frowned, pulling up the link Gabriel sent. His eyes scanned the article, his confusion growing as he saw the headline, Nollywood's Amanda Okoro finds solace in Lekki bookstore. Below it was a picture of Amanda, sitting across from him at the very table they had shared that afternoon. Raphael's heart sank as realization dawned. He thought back to her careful words, her evasiveness, and the sunglasses she rarely removed. It all made sense now. The bell above the door jingled, and Amanda walked in, her usual calm demeanor replaced with visible tension.
You've seen it,
she said softly, her gaze dropping to the floor. Raphael stood, his hands gripping the edge of the counter.
You're Amanda Okoro, the actress.
She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper.
I wanted to tell you, but
You thought it wouldn't matter.
Raphael's tone was sharp, though not unkind.
Do you have any idea what this means for me? For my bookstore?
Amanda stepped closer, her voice breaking.
I didn't mean for this to happen. I was just trying to be normal.
The vulnerability in her voice softened Raphael's anger, but his confusion remained. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair.
I don't know what to say.
I'm sorry.
Amanda said, her eyes glistening.
I'll fix this. I promise.
For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of her fame and the intrusion it brought hanging between them. Without another word, Amanda turned and left, the bell jingling faintly as the door closed behind her. Raphael stared at the picture on his phone once more, his mind racing. The woman he'd started to care for wasn't just any woman. She was a star. And her world was now colliding with his in a way he wasn't sure he could handle. Raphael couldn't focus. The article about Amanda had spread like wildfire, and curious customers had already begun trickling into the bookstore, not for books, but for gossip. Some even asked if Amanda would be back. He had politely brushed them off, but the weight of the situation gnawed at him. That evening, as he closed the shop, Mama Esther visited, carrying a basket of food. Her warm presence filled the room as she set the basket on the counter.
You look troubled, my son.
She said, her eyes scanning his face.
What is it?
Raphael hesitated before showing her the article on his phone. Mama Esther's brow furrowed as she read. But when she finished, she smiled softly.
This woman, Amanda.
She began, choosing her words carefully.
She is not defined by what people say about her, and neither are you. Do you care for her?
Raphael nodded slowly.
But her life, it's so far from mine. She has people like this Chidi, someone who can fit into her world. I'm just...
Enough of that.
Mama Esther interrupted, her tone firm but kind.
Love is not about fitting into someone's world. It's about building one together. If your heart is true, don't let fear stop you.
Her words stayed with Raphael long after she left. Amanda paced her living room, trying to avoid looking at her phone. The fallout from Stella's article had been overwhelming. Calls from her management team, nosy reporters stationed outside her building, and worst of all, Raphael's hurt expression lingering in her mind. A knock on the door startled her. When she opened it, Chidi stood there, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, holding a bottle of wine.
Amanda,
He said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation.
you look stressed. I thought I'd come by and cheer you up.
Amanda sighed, closing the door behind him.
I'm not really in the mood for company, Chidi.
I know,
Chidi said, setting the wine on the counter.
but you need someone who understands what you're going through. Someone who knows how to handle the media, the scrutiny, this life.
He gestured toward her luxurious apartment. Amanda crossed her arms.
What are you trying to say?
I'm saying I can offer you stability.
Chidi replied smoothly.
You don't need the chaos of trying to make someone like Raphael to fit into this. He'll never understand what it takes to live in your world.
His words stung, but they also sparked anger.
Raphael may not have your money or your lifestyle, but he's kind. He listens, and he treats me like a person, not a trophy.
Chidi's smile faltered.
Amanda, be realistic. People like you and me, we don't get to live ordinary lives. You need someone who can stand beside you, not someone who'll be crushed by the weight of it all.
Amanda didn't respond. Her phone buzzed on the table, and she grabbed it, hoping for a distraction. It was a text from Joycey. He's outside your building.
Chidi, I think you should leave.
Amanda said, her voice steady. Chidi opened his mouth to protest but stopped when he saw the determination in her eyes. With a slight nod, he left without another word. Amanda grabbed her apartment keys and rushed outside. Standing by the curb was Raphael, his hands in his pockets, his face uncertain but determined.
I didn't mean to show up unannounced,
He said quickly.
but I needed to see you.
Amanda's heart softened as she stepped closer.
You're here now. That's what matters.
Raphael took a deep breath.
I don't care about the articles or the people staring at us. I care about you. But I need to know, is there room in your life for someone like me?
Tears welled in Amanda's eyes.
You've already made room for me in yours. How could I not do the same?
They stood in the glow of the streetlights, the noise of the city fading into the background. For the first time in weeks, Amanda felt a glimmer of hope. The Nollywood Gala was the event of the year. Held in a grand hall in Victoria Island, it buzzed with the energy of reporters, fans, and stars alike. Amanda stood backstage, adjusting the fold of her elegant mocha gown. Her heart raced, not because of the cameras or the crowd, but because Raphael was seated among the attendees, waiting unknowingly for what was about to unfold. Raphael had been hesitant to come. When Amanda invited him, he almost refused, not wanting to be a spectacle. But her steady reassurance had convinced him. Now, sitting at the back of the hall in a simple suit, he felt out of place among the glittering crowd. But his curiosity about Amanda's intentions kept him anchored. The event progressed with speeches and performances, the spotlight occasionally falling on Amanda as she smiled and waved gracefully. When it was her turn to take the stage, she walked out with a calmness that belied her inner turmoil. She began with the usual formalities, thanking her team, the industry, and her fans. Then she paused, her eyes scanning the audience until they found Raphael.
I want to talk about something more personal tonight.
She began, her voice steady.
For years, I've lived in a world of lights and cameras. It's a beautiful world, but also one that can feel incredibly lonely.
The room fell silent, her words capturing everyone's attention.
Recently, I met someone who reminded me what it feels like to just be Amanda. Not the actress, not the star, just a woman who loves books, quiet moments, and meaningful conversations.
Raphael's heart pounded as Amanda's gaze locked on his.
That someone is here tonight. His name is Raphael, and he's the kindest, most genuine person I've ever known. He taught me that love isn't about fitting into someone else's world. It's about building one together.
The crowd murmured, some clapping softly, others exchanging surprised glances. Amanda continued, her voice stronger now.
I don't care about what the tabloids say or how different our lives may seem. I love him, and tonight, I want the world to know that.
The hall erupted into applause. Raphael, stunned, could barely move. Amanda stepped down from the stage and walked toward him, her smile unwavering. When she reached him, she extended her hand.
Raphael,
She whispered.
will you stand with me, no matter what?
He rose, taking her hand, his voice thick with emotion.
Always.
The following weekend, they escaped to a serene spa resort in the outskirts of Lagos. The gentle sound of water and the scent of lavender filled the air as they lounged on a private terrace overlooking a lush garden.
I still can't believe you did that.
Raphael said, shaking his head with a small smile.
You stood in front of all those people and made me a part of your world.
Amanda laughed lightly, resting her head on his shoulder.
I didn't make you a part of my world. I invited you to build one with me.
They talked for hours, dreaming of a future that balanced the best of their lives. Amanda promised to keep her moments of escape at the bookstore, and Raphael joked about setting up a small celebrity lounge in the back. As the sun set, they sat in comfortable silence, their hands intertwined. For the first time, both felt certain of one thing: they had found something worth fighting for.